Everybody remembers what they were doing at 5:41 on May 22nd, 2011. It was a big day for my family because one of my daughters was graduating from high school, and that was really what our focus was. The graduation went fine. Sirens were going off as we left the gym after graduation. My daughter had 3 favorite restaurants in town, and we asked her to pick where she wanted to go out to eat, and she picked IHOP, which was the only one of the 3 that was in the path of the tornado. My whole family converged there. Everybody except my son was there that day. It started getting very dark. My husband, who watches the weather very closely, checked the radar and saw that there was a hook forming, looked like to the south of us. We thought for a minute about leaving the IHOP and going in the cars, but friends of ours had been caught in a car in a tornado about 4 years before and had died. So we decided to stay put. He went out to look at the weather outside, and what he saw was a big black wall, and then he saw a white object that passed horizontally up high, and he recognized that as debris and recognized that what we were seeing was a tornado, not the kind of tornado you think about with a little spindly gray rope coming down to the ground, but just a black wall. And so he came back inside and got everyone in the restaurant back to the back of the restaurant. He even had to make 2 tours through the restaurant to get everybody back. And then when the cloud was almost upon us, he said, "Everyone, get down on the floor." Everybody laid down on the floor, kind of in a pile. My daughter, 11 at the time, was at the bottom. She was praying. She was reciting Bible verses. And then the tornado hit and the building just exploded. There was glass everywhere. The roof went off, debris everywhere. It was white dust. And it was a very intense few moments. Seemed like it went on forever. But when it passed, everybody picked themselves up and looked around, covered with debris and covered with glass, but there were no severe injuries in the IHOP that day. Some people were in the freezer, some people were in the kitchen, some people were in the restrooms, but there were no severe injuries. So we all gathered. There was a kind of an overhang left at the front of the building. We smelled gas. So I had the brilliant idea that maybe we should shelter in the cars. Looked for our cars, which were just totally demolished with power lines all over and debris all over the cars. And I'm not sure we could have even gotten into the cars. So we went back to the IHOP, and some of the employees figured out how to turn the gas off. It was very wet at that time, and it was very cold. We started out looking to see if there was anybody we could help. And the thing that I remember the most is that there was no one anywhere. It was like a bomb had gone off. There were no people. There was a police car down the street that had its lights on and its door open. There were no police there. And the first place we went was Academy Sports. People had been in the back of that building. We found our way to the back. They couldn't find their way out. They had totally sort of finally made a path back out to the front. There were moms there with kids that were cold and wet. They were afraid to take any clothes from the sports academy without paying for it. And so my husband and I encouraged them, no, find a jacket, your kids are cold, you need to wrap up. The next place we went was Macadoodles, which the employees had called someone before the tornado hit, and the instructions they had been given was to get everybody down in the wine cellar. So Macadoodles was gone. The front door was all that was left. But when we peered down, we could see intact wine bottles and happy people that had found the perfect place to ride out the storm. And they were all okay there in the wine cellar. And then we went on to Walmart, and we started encountering more people that had been injured and were really basically in shock. And I realized there wasn't anything I was going to be able to do. There still had been no emergency personnel that had shown up, no ambulances, no police, anybody. And I was on call. And so I realized that my obligation was to get to the hospital. And I didn't know how I was going to do that with no transportation. So I ran into one of my heroes of the day, Keith Fortenbaugh, who had a truck that had been up against the north wall of Walmart, and that truck had been pushed up against the wall and was protected a little bit, and he thought that he could get me to the hospital. So I climbed into his truck with a broken windshield, no side windows, no windshield wipers, glass all over, and we started out, and we went through the debris and the power lines to try to get to the hospital. We got to the intersection right in front of Freeman. I could see Freeman and I could see St. John's, and we were stuck in traffic, so I couldn't get anywhere. there was a car that came from the other direction, and so Keith said, "I'll get you there, I'll get you to the hospital." And he pulled into that lane and immediately sideswiped the highway patrol that was following that other vehicle. So there were a few tense moments with the highway patrolman, but eventually I convinced him that I was a physician, I needed to get to the hospital, and he got me the rest of the way to the hospital. So when I got there, Freeman was on emergency power. I found out quickly that the women's locker room was not essential, and it was pitch dark, but I found my way to my locker and changed into scrubs and set out to the emergency room, taking care of patients as best we could in those conditions. So after the tornado, there was a long recovery process. The medical community took a long time to recover. Not only was St. John's completely devastated, but many medical offices were hit, dental offices were hit. So it was a long recovery. 15 years later, Joplin still has scars of the tornado on the land and in our hearts. But we saw the community come together. It was very special. We learned that we are much more resilient than we thought we were going to be, and we have the capacity to do extraordinary things when called upon to do them, and we really saw that in the Joplin community.